to hand the meeting over to Nate Eppink. Nate?
Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who don't know, I'm the director of Medina County Park District. I'm also a new chamber board member, so I'm happy to serve the community in that capacity as well. I appreciate the opportunity here today to highlight the Park District and preview some of the really great things we have on the horizon. I won't assume that everyone knows about us, so I'll start with kind of an overview and talk about some of my early goals in this position, and then really focus on some of the cool projects, some of the exciting things that we have coming up in the next, well, within this year and in the next couple years too. So the Park District, Medina County Park District, was established in 1965. We are far from the oldest park district on the block. Cleveland Metro Parks, for example, is well over 100 years old. So if you own property and you pay property taxes in Medina County, but you live in Hinckley, you will pay into the Cleveland Metro Park system. Everywhere else, you pay into Medina County Park District. We have over 7,200 acres that we manage, and we currently have 18 different open parks, preserves, and trails for people to enjoy. And let me tell you, in 2020, they enjoyed the heck out of our parks and trails. During COVID, for a while, our parks and trails were among the only things open. So a lot of people found enjoyment here locally. We have almost 50 different trails. That's not mileage, that's just hiking opportunities. The mileage is much higher. And we do all of this with fewer than 35 employees. So we are really good at multitasking, and there's really never a slow season. We are established under Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 1545. So the probate court, that's Judge Dunn here in Medina County, he appoints the commissioners, Kathy Davis, Andy DeLuna, and Dennis Neat. Collectively, my three bosses, the board members, have more than 25 years of experience on this board. So they're very knowledgeable about what we do. They're focused on the mission, and they've been a great resource for me in my first couple years on the job here. So why are we here? Well, I became the director in October of 2018, and shortly after starting, I asked this question to staff. I gave them a survey they could answer anonymously, and I got some really interesting answers. No one said that they are here to answer the phone or to cut the grass or to clean restrooms. They gave me some big picture stuff. They're here to make the parks enjoyable, to inspire people to protect the environment, to share our mission. I love this one, to plant the forests of tomorrow. Who wouldn't want to do that job, right? Really, really cool stuff. So there's a good sense of purpose and belief in the mission here. Increasingly, our mission is being fulfilled, and we're being supported by our nonprofit group, the Friends of Medina County Parks. For years, they've helped to underwrite programs, they've enhanced some development projects, they've assisted with land acquisition. They have an endowment fund and a trails fund, but to some extent, there's still a best kept secret or a well kept secret here in the county in terms of planned giving and development. But I can see that changing as more and more people enjoy what we do. In 2019, they received their largest monetary gift of over $600,000 from a gentleman named George Ayers. He was a Hinckley resident, and he left the Friends over 600 grand in his estate plans. And he had those funds earmarked for two things: for fishing access and for picnic areas. So last year, the Friends, thanks to Mr. Ayers, paid for a new accessible fishing platform at Brunswick Lake Park, and River Styx Park will get a similar platform this year. The Friends have also committed to helping us build a small open-air picnic shelter with the George Ayers Fund out in Bluebell Valley, which is a newer area that I'll talk about here in a few minutes. Just a wonderful gift, and I would encourage any of you who might be in the planned giving realm any accountants or similar professionals to consider the Friends and consider the Park District, because it's really a gift that keeps giving, and it benefits the community. So as I mentioned, I've been the director since October of 18, and really I've had 3 early goals here. That's to maintain our standards, recruit new talent, and to plan for the future. People expect clean, safe parks. That's why they vote for us, and that's why they come back often. Recruiting talent will be a necessity because we've got some people who have worked here for a long time. Our operations manager retired last year after 29 years with the Park District. So we combined departments, our planning and our operations department, and that management position is filled by a guy that we hired away from Cleveland Metro Parks, Isaac Smith. So he's an example of someone who's been with us just a little over a year, but is helping to lead us in the future. And then planning for the future is important. You know, we can't just rest on what we've done and who we've been. Medina County is remains one of the fastest growing counties in the state of Ohio. There's a lot of development, and we are looking to preserve special places before it's too late, before they're lost forever. So we're looking to acquire land for new parks and preserves, to expand trails, particularly some multi-purpose bike trails. I know there's a great interest in that. And then also form connections between parks and trails, existing park assets, but also community assets as well. When it comes to land acquisition and considering how we grow, our focus is really on resource-rich properties. Generally speaking, we're not going after farmland, farm fields, unless they can help form connections. We're after the resource-rich properties, the wetlands or the swamps that maybe developers don't want, or large forested areas that can provide shelter for wildlife. Our minimum size for a new standalone site is 30 acres. That just kind of feels right to us. It's large enough where you can get out and maybe be alone in nature for a while. You can enjoy a half-mile or 3/4 of a mile trail, and you're not going to have people right on top of you. So 30 acres is the size for a standalone site. But I've purchased land that's just an acre because it's adjacent to something that's existing, or it can help make a connection. And so that plays into our overall philosophy as well. Land that's adjacent to parks and preserve, so we can, I guess, protect the borders and protect woods and wetlands next to existing parks. Land that can help form connections. And then I'm also looking at communities that maybe don't have an open presence. If you were to look at a map of the county and our park locations, Wadsworth jumps out. We don't have a presence in the city of Wadsworth. And that's something that I've talked to the mayor and the service director about. I think that's important for our organization going forward. So we've talked to some landowners, and we've talked with the city, and we're keeping our eyes open. It's important to note that naming rights have been and will be reserved for those who donate land. Some of our most beloved parks started because of really generous individuals. Allerdale Park in Granger Township, Mugridge Park in Granger Township right off of 18 and Windfall Road, the Schleman Nature Preserve. Those are 3 examples where people took a chance on the Park District in our early years with the case of Theda Schleman, or later on the Allards and the Mugridges. They wanted other people to enjoy their land as much as they did. So they made gifts, and in exchange, they earned the right to name those parks after individuals or families. When it comes to developing a park, we're looking at some definitions that kind of help us define what an area may be. This helps us when it comes to planning for budget, for maintenance, and so on. So shortly after becoming the director, we had Buckeye Woods Park, we had Allerdale Park, we had Schleman Nature Preserve. I asked the question to help me, what's in a name? So we've better defined what these different areas look like. And it comes down to the activities that are possible and the amenities that are offered in each. So in a park, like a Buckeye Woods or like Allerdale, you can hike, you can bike, you might be able to fish, you can picnic, bird watch. There's a lot of things there. There's play areas or playgrounds. We have enclosed spaces or open air shelters. Dogs are welcome on leashes, of course. We have several ball fields in the park district at Greenleaf Park and in Buckeye Woods Park. So that's what a park looks like to this organization. A preserve is another type of open area that simply has fewer amenities. They cost a lot less to open, and they thereby cost less to maintain. Improvements are generally limited. You might have an open air shelter. You may or may not have a restroom. And generally speaking, these are natural surface trails or a slightly improved trail like a crushed limestone surface. Probably not going to see an asphalt trail in a nature preserve. And your pets are welcome here too, as long as they're leashed. And Princess Ledges in Brunswick Hills Township, and I've mentioned Schleman Nature Preserve a few times. Those are two examples. Lastly is a wildlife sanctuary, and this is probably the most limiting in terms of activities and improvements, but it's very important to what we do. The home of Wolf Creek Environmental Center and Granger Wetlands, which is a site in Granger Township that will hopefully open later this year. Those are two examples of wildlife sanctuaries. They're like preserves, but we don't allow fishing, picnicking, or pets. So they are a sanctuary to wildlife, and we're really a guest in their home. The improvements are limited to really natural surface trails, primitive trails. Trails are not very wide, and no biking for sure. So how have we done recently? 2020, here's a look at it by the numbers. We all know that 2020 was something else. We all did a lot of, I guess, soul searching about what's important, and we all had to do things a little differently. But I'm happy to say that we came out, we survived 2020, and we did quite well last year. We had over 167 acres that we acquired, including the former Chippewa Lake Amusement Park, which I will talk about here shortly. We used over $670,000 in outside funding for a number of projects. Lots of volunteers continue to help us, even though nature centers were closed. Volunteers did service projects in different areas. We have trail monitors who, as they walk, they make note of things. They can report back things to us like, hey, there's a limb down here, or this tree needs pruning. And we had over 5,000 volunteer hours last year alone. Restoration is a big part of what we do. Reforesting, planting the forests of tomorrow, that's big. We planted over 3,500 trees and shrubs last year, native trees and shrubs, and almost 30 acres of park land was seeded with native vegetation. It wasn't all good. I know the business community had taken some hits last year and suffered somewhat because of COVID. We weren't exempt from that. We had just $20,000 in reservation revenue last year, and we had to issue over $107,000 in refunds. That's not anything that you could budget for. We took a hit, so for a short time, we put a hold on new reservations through June of this year, and we're sticking to that for the enclosed facilities. And we also had to offer fewer public programs. Our naturalists who do youth camps and assist with scout programs and public programs, all the walks that they do, field trips, thousands of kids come through Wolf Creek Environmental Center every year, and that was all put on hold. So we had to find new ways to keep staff busy, new ways to educate people. We did a lot of things virtually as we're doing here today. So I want to highlight some of the great things from 2020 and then give you a preview of what's to come here in the future. I mentioned the Black River Nature Preserve, specifically the Bluebell Valley area, just a few minutes ago. This is an area that opened in 2020, and we consider this phase 1 of our development here. If you're familiar with Hidden Hollow Camp in Harrisville Township, This is immediately north of Hidden Hollow. And this is land that we owned for 15 years. And then we developed it last year. So there's a small parking lot off of Richmond Road and a little over a mile worth of trails that you can explore. And what's really neat about this area is it takes you through a couple of different habitats in just a short distance. So the orange trail that you see on the map travels through a warm season prairie grass habitat. And it's crushed limestone, and we consider it accessible for people of all abilities. So whether you have a stroller or a wheelchair or a walker, you can utilize that trail fairly easily. The blue trail that you see on the map also takes you through a native grassland, but also you dip into the woods for a bit, and then the successional meadow, but particularly the wetlands, are really cool. And I would encourage you on a day like today, in this spring, to go out and particularly if you go early in the day or you go kind of early in the evening. Our parks are open 6 a.m. to dark, which is an hour past sunset. You're going to hear a lot of wildlife. There's a lot of activity there, even if there's not a lot of people there. The spring peepers in particular at those wetlands are at times almost deafening. It's really, really neat. There is no restroom there yet. There's a porta potty. But phase 2 development this year is the small open air picnic shelter that I referenced, paid for through the Friends and the George Ayers Fund. And then we will be installing a quote unquote real restroom building as well. So lots of good things coming to Harrisville and Harrisville Township and Lodi yet this year. While I was waiting here to begin this presentation, both Jacqueline and Stephanie commented on Lake Medina. Jacqueline says she utilizes this quite a bit. This was another great improvement for 2020. We've basically redesigned the parking lot, really opened it up. It's no longer a hidden asset on Granger Road. The entrance sign just went in yesterday afternoon. I was there this morning to get this photo. But we added parking. It's now an asphalt surface. There's plenty of parking there, and it's highly visible. And in addition, the lower trail is completely paved now. And I have to mention that this improvement was paid for in part with some state dollars. We received $150,000 from the state of Ohio to complete this work. And I know it's bringing more people to Lake Medina. And as we engage in some other activities there, this will become even more popular. Related to Lake Medina, this is a preview of what we hope is to come. And you are the first group to hear about this publicly. But this week, we will be applying for state funding through the Clean Ohio Trails Fund. We're submitting an application for $500,000 to build a trail from East Smith Road to the SUMA campus and then connect to Lake Medina. If we're awarded, construction could begin in 23, but this is through park property. We have an easement with the adjacent owner and then an easement to build the trail with SUMA. They've been really helpful in this regard. And as ODOT, if you've been on down 18 at all in the last, I don't know, couple months, you've seen a lot of utility work and a lot of clearing taking place. ODOT is in the process of starting to widen Medina Road or State Route 18. And on the south side of the road, there will be a bike lane or a bike trail. And this will complement that really well. So you can ride to Lake Medina from other parts of town utilizing this new bike lane, or you could start over on East Smith Road conceivably in a few years and enjoy this open habitat, go through the woods for a bit, and then connect through SUMA to Lake Medina. So something we're really excited about. And I have to give thanks to my fellow chamber board members for writing a letter of support for this project, because I think it'll be great for the park, not just the park district, but Lake Medina, and great for the business community as well. Because the more opportunities we have to keep people here in the area for things like recreation, I think the better off we'll all be. This is another exciting greenway project that I don't know that there's been as much press as maybe it deserves, But the city of Brunswick has been leading the charge on this. And last year they were awarded funding for phase 1 of the Plum Creek Greenway Trail. So big picture, this is a concept that connects Plum Creek Park in Brunswick Hills Township to Brunswick Lake Park in the city of Brunswick. It's about a 2-mile distance. And phase 1 has been awarded funding, and construction should begin on this later this year. The city's building its portion. We're building our portion in Plum Creek Park. But for phase 1, it will connect to Huntington Elementary. And then phase 2 will eventually connect to Laurel Road. So we're slowly moving our way north. But this will be an asphalt trail and a great opportunity for cyclists, for runners, for hikers. And it's not only connecting 2 parks, but also the community asset of the elementary school. It'll connect to Grace Baptist Church. They've granted the city an easement to help make this connection possible. And then neighbors, people living nearby can access these amenities fairly easily too. This is an opportunity for, I believe it's sometime next month in May. I'm leading a hike for young professionals through the chamber to see this on the ground before anybody else. But this is a new property that will be developed this year. We've owned this for about 5 or 6 years. It runs between Ridge Road or State Route 94 and State Road in Sharon Township. This is a nature preserve, so there won't be that level of development that you might find in a park. But this year we will begin development and add a small parking lot off of State Road, a crushed limestone / gravel trail through the field and the meadow that is there. And then we'll also add a primitive trail through the woods, which are absolutely beautiful. So this will be a new hiking opportunity in Sharon Township. Future phases, we're looking at mitigation, using this as a mitigation project, creating wetlands. So there'll be a lot of hopefully great birding opportunities here, and then expanding the length of trail that's available for people to use on foot. So again, this coming up in May for the young professionals, a chance to walk this with me, but something we're really excited about, another opportunity for folks in this area to get out and explore the outdoors. But that brings me to Chippewa Lake, and this is probably, and for good reason, the one property that generates more interest than anything else we have going currently. We closed on this property last year in June of 2020, and it too was one of the great things that happened in an otherwise interesting year. For those who don't know, and I've only lived in this county myself for a few years, so I won't assume everyone knows the history, but for 100 years, there was an amusement park on the east side of Chippewa Lake. It closed in 1978. And the next year, 1979, it was the first reference I saw in our board minutes at the Park District referencing Chippewa Lake as an opportunity. So this is something we've eyed for a long time. Over the years, there have been proposals to develop a wellness center, a culinary institute. There's been talk of residential housing, residential development here, and nothing ever came of it. About 10 or 12 years ago, much of the area was timbered in advance of possible development, so there aren't a whole lot of large trees left. But for those of you who have lived around here for years, there's a lot of fond memories of Chippewa Lake Amusement Park. People would come from all throughout the region, and some of the weekends reportedly had tens of thousands of people for not only the rides, but they had concerts and a dance hall, and it was something. This is what it looks like today. So I like to joke that I told my 3 kids, who range from 5 to 10, that Daddy bought an amusement park, and then I showed them these pictures, and I saw some pretty disappointed faces. But for us, this is an incredible opportunity to spur economic development and to protect Ohio's largest glacial lake, inland glacial lake, I should say. We can't compete with Lake Erie, but Chippewa Lake is over 300 acres. At its deepest point, it is about 24, 25 feet. But it's Ohio's largest inland glacial lake, and it's been plagued by harmful algal blooms for a number of years, which limits recreation. And that's part of the business we're in, is giving people the opportunity to explore these local natural resources. So our efforts at Chippewa Lake will focus on a few things these next couple of years. And I will briefly talk about our cleanup and restoration, the master planning process, and what public access may look like. I am leading a hike for chamber members only on April 20th. I am told that the response has been pretty good. It's already at capacity, and there is a waiting list. But I'd encourage you to reach out to Jacqueline or Stephanie and add your name to that waiting list if you want an opportunity to see this before it becomes something else in the next few years. I have to say that we are already getting a huge jump start on our efforts because of two funding sources. One is the state capital budget, and the second is H2 Ohio, which is and also a state program that Governor DeWine has pushed to focus on water quality. We purchased the amusement park last year for $2.1 million, which was a couple $100,000 less than the appraised value. And the sellers allowed us to make 2 payments over 2 years. So we have another $1 million payment due next month. The state capital budget included $750,000 for Medina County Park District towards that second payment. And that's a reimbursable grant. So after we pay in May, we'll complete some paperwork and we'll get $750,000 from the state back into our coffers here at the Park District, which could then be used for additional land acquisition in the future. H2 Ohio really gives us that shot in the arm for cleanup and restoration. This is a program, as I said, that focuses on water quality. And we announced in January that we are receiving $1.52 million, so a little more than 1.5 million from H2 Ohio to really improve 3 sites along the inlet, the outlet, and the lake itself, including the amusement park. And that's really going to help jumpstart our efforts here. So we're going to talk about those 3 projects now and a little bit about the master plan process and what public access may look like before I open it up to questions. So this is a look at our concept for along the inlet. And the inlet it's kind of a glorified ditch. If you bike at all in Buckeye Woods, or you like to walk or run here, you're probably familiar with the Chippewa Inlet Trail. The inlet trail follows the inlet. It is what feeds one of 4, I believe 4 tributaries that feeds Chippewa Lake. And I mentioned that the lake is plagued by algal blooms, and we won't point the finger at any one group. We have to all point the finger at ourselves. There are a lot of farms in the watershed, and nutrients come into Chippewa Lake from farm fields, and that contributes to the harmful algal blooms. Failing septic systems will contribute. Those who over-fertilize their lawn, they want a lawn that looks like a golf course. That fertilizer, those nutrients have to go somewhere. And if you're in the watershed, they end up in Chippewa Lake. So we've still got the issue of external loading, all these nutrients coming in through the inlet and the creeks. But we also have an issue of, it's a legacy issue of internal loading too. There's a lot of nutrients in the sediment of Chippewa Lake. And we're not able to tackle that yet, or at least through H2 Ohio. But what we do intend to do is start along the inlet on a 118-acre parcel that we have owned for more than 15 years. We intend to basically divert some of that water, create a new channel a new floodplain for nutrient filtration. We've walked this with our partners at Muskingum Watershed Conservancy District within the last couple of weeks. This is within the Chippewa Subdistrict's jurisdiction. So the Muskingum folks are really interested in what we do here. If you're not familiar with the subdistrict or Muskingum itself, it's a flood control project, essentially. So this is within their jurisdiction, and they've agreed to work with us and help us on what this becomes, because it impacts their work too. So this might ultimately look a little different when it's on the ground. It might be an interconnected series of wetlands. Ultimately, it will filter out nutrients before they reach the lake, which will benefit recreation. We won't have to put boats at a no-wake speed when there's harmful algal blooms sometime down in the future. This could also increase storage capacity during strong flooding events. So, areas aren't flooded, roads aren't flooded south of the lake. So this is the first area that we intend to improve with H2 Ohio. The area that you see in green is part of that park parcel, and we'll add native vegetation here, which will also improve the situation, help to restore that property. This is the amusement park. Again, about 95 acres that we acquired last year. And on our concept that was floated to H2 Ohio, you can see that we are going to, first, we're going to clean up a lot of the asphalt and crumbling infrastructure that's there. I've told everyone who will listen that we'd love to keep the Ferris wheel as long as I can keep people off of it. There's some roller coaster track and the tumblebug track. Those things are really neat. They allow us to tell a story about what this area was before, and where else can you walk through the woods and see a Ferris wheel. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's an attraction. So we want to keep those things, but there's a lot of crumbling infrastructure that is not helping the lake water quality at all. So with H2 Ohio dollars, we'll remove all that asphalt and concrete that aren't necessary, and we will be creating about 20 acres of wetlands here. So this area will look different than it did during its heyday, but that's a benefit, that's a positive for the lake, but it'll also attract a lot of park users. The H2 Ohio funding doesn't do anything for park development. We'll cross that bridge a little later using some of our own funds. There's also a lot of external resources we could tap into, but I'll talk about that in a second when it comes to master planning. Finally, the third H2 Ohio site is along the outlet. This is a 7.5 acre piece that parcel that we purchased back in 2019. It has really good visibility, frontage on Kennard and Lake, and we've identified this as a future kayak launch. So with H2 Ohio funding, it wants to be a wetland anyway. The soil lays really wet. It was full of invasive species that we've recently brush hogged, and we'll be treating that. And with H2 Ohio's help, we'll create a wetland here, and then eventually a kayak launch. So it's a really nice, about a half-mile float from here up to Chippewa Lake, and a really good visible spot that signals, hey, this is your destination for recreation in Ohio's largest inland glacial lake. I've mentioned master planning and public access, and we have recently hired OHM advisors to lead us on this project. We put out a request for proposals back in February, and the focus was on developing the east side of the lake, so the former amusement park. But we also wanted to look at connecting to existing assets. We have the Chippewa Inlet Trail, Chippewa Rail Trail, the villages that are there, other park property. How can we connect these things so this becomes a place unlike any other in the park district, possibly unlike any other in Northern Ohio, where you can actually spend the entire day here biking, fishing, running, boating, you name it. Those improvements will have to live within our mission. right away, as soon as we announced the purchase of the property, people said, hey, you got to bring the amusement park back, or, you got to build a golf course. And those things aren't within the park district's mission. But, there might be things like camping opportunities or hiking opportunities or kayak rental opportunities, things that connect people to the resource and drive traffic here would be great. So we're starting this process now. We'll have some stakeholder meetings coming up this spring, and there will be a public engagement portion as well. So different community groups and user groups and others, there'll be probably, in this time of COVID, what does a public meeting look like? We might do some small groups in person, we might do some online surveys or things via Zoom like this, but we definitely want to engage the public and see what you would like to see here. For me, improving access to the water is critical, and that could also help us with some funding sources. So the state has funding dollars for fishing platforms. Our friends group, of course, with the George Ayers Fund, has access to funds for fishing, accessible fishing opportunities. But even different boating grants can improve the conditions here and help us offer more for the public. In closing, when it comes to the amusement park, I will say that this is going to become a regional destination. OHM Advisors gets it. They see how much potential there is here, and what we do will just spur even more development. And I sincerely believe that when people have a reason to come here and play and stay, they will spend money in Medina, not just the city, but the county. They have to buy gas, they have to eat, they might want to stay overnight. And so this benefits not just the park district and the villages, but this will eventually benefit the business community as well and become a tremendous asset for all of us to enjoy. And so with that, I will ask if there are any questions about the park district, about any of the projects I talked about. If you want to donate land to me, raise your hand and I'll be happy to talk. Or you can follow up with me later on. I'll leave this up for a minute. I've got my email. You can find me on LinkedIn, or I'm on Twitter too, usually sharing park news and things like that. But again, I appreciate the opportunity. And Jacqueline and Stephanie, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thanks, Nate. That information was phenomenal. I can't say enough. You and your team are doing great things. We are so lucky to have these amenities in our backyard, and the more people can get out and explore them, the more people can learn about them, the better for, like you said, everything involved. Leslie Burns, I see you raised your hand. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a friend that owns property in the area of like Ash Lane in Chippewa Lake. And they were asking how the wetlands there, I guess there's proposed wetlands around that area, how that's going to affect the homes or property there.
Sure. Well, just in general terms, that's one of the questions I got early on from a landowner. What about mosquitoes? Or what about, am I going to be flooded out? Will I still have access to my home? And we don't own the roads. We own just a part of Main Drive right now. So currently, everyone who has a property down there, they'll be able to access their home going forward. We want to improve what's there. The wetlands will retain stormwater, certainly improve the water quality to the lake. We're not going to build a wetland right up to somebody's front door. So during this process of master planning, I'd encourage anyone in the community who's interested, but also those property owners, to reach out to us and share concerns or questions, or certainly praise if they're excited about anything. But I can't speak to a specific parcel right now without staring at a map and knowing exactly what their concern might be.
Thank you. I'll have them reach out to you.
Okay, great.
Any other questions for Nate? Please feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat. Bob, do you have a question?
Not so much a question as just a thank you for everything that you're doing out there. I think it's exciting that there's going to be all these connections. I mean, I work here at Century Cycles, and so, our customer base uses the parks all the time. And me living in Brunswick, I like to ride from Brunswick to Chippewa Lake and Buckeye Woods, and to know that at some point all of that will be connected is just exciting news. I think, as you all know, there's been a big uptick in cycling the last couple of years. So, and that's been one of the questions we've always been asked here. The metro parks, it's pretty easy because it's very obvious where the trails are and so forth. So to see these developments starting to take place and to be able to tell people in the area, yeah, you can ride here and you can ride there and you can see all these different parks. And that's one thing I love about this area is there's so many of these parks, and to have them all connected at some point is pretty exciting news. So, kudos to you for taking on that task and making it happen.
Well, thanks, Bob. And appreciate what you guys do. Century Cycles has been talking about donating a bike repair station for Buckeye Woods, which will be a great addition to the park. But we're not an island. I'm not an island. I've got a great team here. We've got a lot of partners, like City of Brunswick, as I mentioned. They're taking the lead on the Brunswick or the Plum Creek Greenway project. County commissioners and the county's planning department and Lafayette Township trustees, and everybody's interested in what we're doing at Chippewa Lake because they see the regional impact. But I'll tell you, when you love what you do, this is more exciting than it is. It comes with challenges. I joke that not every day is a walk in the park, but there are days where it's so rewarding that it doesn't feel like work because we know the impact that we're going to have. It's really a great time for us to try to make these connections before it's too late, and to engage people and get them excited about what we're doing.
Hey, Nate. Brian Midlick with Armbruster Moving and Storage. Love the parks. Big fan, especially of the Bluebell. I had the opportunity to go up there when it first opened to the public. It was pretty neat to walk those trails. In regards with the Chippewa project, are there any plans for the pier? I know that's out there. It's kind of crumbling and a bit of a hazard right now.
Yeah, good question. So for those of you who are joining me on the 20th, one of the things we'll do is we'll poke out of the brush and check out the existing concrete pier that's there. We need to have that analyzed and see whether it's something we can build on top of, or if it needs to be replaced, or if there's something else that makes sense. Again, this was before my time here, but during the heyday of the amusement park, the amusement park operators had boat rides. And it's been suggested to me that, hey, that would be a really neat opportunity for park visitors if they could get a history of the area from the water. So increasing access to the water is important, whether it's for private individuals or for the park district. But certainly I realize that it's not in the best condition. So we have to have that analyzed, and if there's a way to improve not only the structure, but its visibility, we'll attempt to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Nate? Let's see in chat. Oh, Natalie asked, when you said you had to issue refunds, what did that mean?
Yeah, so the refunds were primarily for reservations for enclosed or open air spaces where, we host a lot of weddings and family reunions and private events every year. And for a while, the first couple months of the pandemic, we were proactively canceling events on the park side. As the pandemic went on, people became increasingly less confident that they could host their event in a safe manner. So we didn't penalize anyone for canceling their own event. We had to issue refunds for the use of those facilities, which range from a couple $100s to a couple $1,000, depending on day of the week or how long you're renting it. So those are the refunds we had to issue during the pandemic.
Great. One last question for anybody. Anybody have a final thought, question to add? Oh, Dave, go right ahead. Bring us on home.
Yeah, I'll try. Hey, Nate, I appreciate all the information. It's great information you put out to us. I have a question. Do you have, or is there access to, maybe on a website? I'm unsure. of all the fishing access areas within the Medina parks?
We do have a fishing guide. I don't remember where that might be online. But Dave, if you message me, I can send it to you, and I'm sure my I'm sure our marketing coordinator is watching this and thinking, I got to tell Nate where this is. But yeah, we have a list of locations where you can fish and where you can engage in other activities too.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, once again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, especially to Nate. We appreciate the information. We're so thankful for everybody that chose to join us today. Please visit the Chamber website. We actually have what seems like several events coming up virtually still for this month, but start seeing some information on us easing our way back in, following the governor's health orders, of course, to some more interactive in-person gatherings as well. I know Nate had his contact information out there, so if anybody needs to, please reach out directly to Nate, or if you have any other questions that didn't get answered today, please reach out to Stephanie or myself, and we'd be happy to find answers for you. So thank you so much for joining. Everybody have a great day. Go forth and do good things.
And please go outside.
Yes, go outside. Don't forget, it's beautiful out.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.